cold November morning in 1970, a father and his two young daughters were hiking through a valley outside Bergen, Norway. The ground was wet, the air was sharp, and pine-covered hills rolled down toward a still, gray lake below. Locals called this place Isdal, Ice Valley. But some of the older residents in Bergen had another name for it, one that went back generations. Thanks to a long history of accidents and suicides in those same hills, they called it Death Valley. That morning, the name would fit all over again. Because tucked between the rocks, half hidden from the trail, the two girls spotted something that stopped them cold. A shape. Human, but wrong somehow. As they got closer, they realized they were looking at a body, badly burned, lying among the scree. Within the hour, Bergen police were climbing that same trail, and what they found at the top would trigger one of the strangest, most quietly unsettling investigations in modern European history. Because over 50 years later, nobody knows this woman's real name. Nobody knows why she was in that valley. And the deeper investigators dug, the less sense any of it made. Stay with me, because this case has more twists than almost anything else I've covered on this channel, and the final theory investigators landed on is not the one you'll expect. Let's start with exactly what those officers found, because the scene itself broke almost every assumption they walked in with. The woman was lying on her back among the rocks, arms stretched out to either side, hands clenched into fists, in a position forensic experts recognized instantly, the posture a body takes when exposed to extreme heat. Her face and most of her hair had been burned away completely. And yet, strangely, there was no evidence of any large fire around her. No scorched brush, no burned trees, just her, alone, in the open air. Scattered nearby were the remains of an umbrella, a melted plastic bottle, torn fragments of clothing, and a spectacle case. It didn't look like the site of an accident. It looked deliberate, almost staged. One forensic investigator who worked the case would later admit that the way the objects were arranged around her felt less like a crime scene and more like some kind of ceremony. There was no identification anywhere on her. No missing persons report matched her description. Officers had almost nothing to go on beyond a general build, dark hair, and an estimated age somewhere between 25 and 40. So Bergen police tried the only lead they had left. They had a sketch drawn up and sent it out to hotels across the entire country, hoping someone, anyone, might recognize her face. What came back turned a strange, sad discovery into something far bigger than anyone expected. Hotel after hotel confirmed the same woman had stayed with them across the months leading up to her death. But here's where the case stopped making sense. Every hotel knew her by a different name. Genevieve Lancière, Claudia Tielt, Claudia Nielsen, Vera Jarle, Alexia Zarna Merchis, Fenella Lork. At least 8 separate aliases, used at different hotels in different cities over several months in 1970 alone. She spoke poor English, but fluent German and Flemish. Staff remembered her as quiet, well-dressed, and careful, the kind of guest who noticed everything happening around her. One waitress recalled seeing her dine beside 2 German naval officers, one of them senior ranking. Other staff remembered her checking into a room and then, for no clear reason, switching rooms 2 or 3 times in a single night. At one hotel, a member of staff swore she had marked her own door in a strange, deliberate way before leaving it. The kind of small habit that means nothing on its own and everything if you're a person trying not to be followed. And she wasn't only being noticed by hotel staff. A shoe salesman remembered selling her a pair of rubber boots after she insisted, oddly forcefully, on that exact pair. Another witness recalled seeing her arguing with a man in an unfamiliar Eastern European language over, of all things, a standing mirror they seemed to be buying together. A local hiker, years later, would come forward to say he'd seen her on a nearby trail just days before her death, walking ahead of two men in coats, men who looked, in his words, Southern. She looked, he said, as though she was about to tell him something. She never did. Investigators searched desperately for a passport, anything that might confirm a real identity behind all these names. They found nothing. Only a scrap of what might once have been a plastic passport cover, badly damaged, lying near her body in the valley. But the case was about to take its strangest turn yet, and it happened almost by accident. At the Bergen train station, 2 suitcases had been sitting unclaimed for over a week, when a station attendant finally connected them to the ongoing investigation. Police opened them expecting almost anything. What they found still puzzles investigators today. Wigs, multiple changes of clothing, every single label deliberately cut or scraped away. Sunglasses, a full kit of tools for altering her own appearance. And buried among her belongings, a notebook filled with handwriting nobody in the entire Bergen Police Department could read, not because it was written in a foreign language, because it was written in a private code. Rows of numbers and symbols that meant something only to her. Investigators would spend years trying to break that code. Parts of it, to this day, remain unsolved. Piece by piece, a picture was forming. And it was not the picture of an ordinary traveler. It was the picture of someone who had spent months constructing an entire life built around never being found, switching names, switching hotel rooms, switching her own face, over and over, for the better part of a year, right up until the night she died in that valley. The autopsy added one more disturbing detail. She had ingested roughly 50 sleeping pills before her death, combined with carbon monoxide poisoning. Traces of smoke found in her lungs confirmed something chilling. She had still been breathing when whatever caused those burns had begun. So who spends the better part of a year constructing 8 separate identities across an entire country? And what could possibly be worth going to that much trouble to hide? That single question is what eventually turned this from a strange, sad death into a decades-long international mystery. One that stretched all the way to the world of Cold War espionage. Some investigators became convinced she had been a spy. 1970 sat deep in the Cold War. And at the exact time she was crisscrossing Norway, the country was secretly testing a new missile system along its coastline. When military files were finally declassified decades later, they revealed something that made investigators' blood run cold. Her documented movements lined up almost perfectly with the locations and timing of those top-secret missile trials. A local fisherman even reported seeing her near the exact site of the testing grounds. Then, in 1973, something happened that changed everything about how this case was viewed. A waiter in the Norwegian town of Lillehammer was shot dead in front of his pregnant wife by a foreign intelligence team who had mistaken him for someone else entirely. A wanted militant. The killers were eventually traced back to a foreign intelligence agency operating covertly on Norwegian soil. Suddenly, the Isdal Woman's case didn't look quite so isolated anymore. If one foreign agency was willing to conduct an operation on Norwegian ground and kill an innocent man over mistaken identity, investigators began to ask themselves a much colder question. What if the woman in the valley hadn't been a spy who took her own life, but someone silenced by exactly this kind of operation? Decades later, researchers would even connect her, however loosely, to a notorious Swiss financier with ties to extremist networks, a lead that reopened the entire case in ways nobody expected. And yet, despite everything, every false name, every disguise, every unexplained movement across the country, Norwegian police officially closed the case in early 1971. Their official conclusion: suicide. Decades later, some of the very officers who worked the case quietly admitted they never actually believed that finding. Not even for a moment. She was buried in a zinc coffin in a Bergen cemetery under Catholic rites, chosen because several of the false names she had used belonged to Catholic saints. That coffin remains there today, still waiting for a name that may never come. In recent years, scientists used isotope analysis on her preserved teeth to trace her likely origins to somewhere along the border of France and Germany, sometime in the 1940s. It's the closest anyone has ever come to an identity, and it still isn't close enough. So sit with that for a moment. A woman lived for the better part of a year under 8 completely different names, evaded identification so thoroughly that even her own passport disappeared without a trace, and died in a valley nicknamed Death Valley, surrounded by objects arranged like some kind of ritual. More than 50 years later, we still don't know who she really was, why she was really in Norway, or what happened to her in the final hours of her life. If this case pulled you in the way it pulled me in, tell me in the comments what you think really happened to the Isdal woman. Spy, victim, something else entirely. And if you want more real unsolved mysteries told exactly like this one, subscribe to Crime Through Time, because cases like this are exactly what this channel is built around.